really everything you want is possible, but you actually have to want it. And you have to, going back to what you're talking about, you have to visualize it, write it down, be grateful for what you do have, but don't be complacent with where you are. And, so many people are looking in that rearview mirror saying, putting up all these limiting beliefs of why things aren't possible instead of figuring out how can it be possible.
This is BetterWealth with Caleb Williams. Welcome to another episode of BetterWealth Breakdown, where we talk about concepts, ideas, and quotes from around the world to help you live a more intentional life. And today's episode, we're talking about why people are mediocre. And I'm telling you, this is going to be a fun one because, first of all, we should define that. And then second of all, we should actually share the data behind why people are being mediocre. I can't say the word mediocrity.
Well, so it's an interesting concept because, again, going back to a lot of the other episodes that we've recorded, is like what's going on in our world is we're breeding a lot of mediocrity.
Yeah, that's okay. That's how you say the word.
and let's look at sports. Everybody's a winner. I don't think either of us resonate with that idea that everybody's a winner, because that doesn't happen anywhere in life.
Yeah.
There are always winners and losers. And mediocre is just being average. Mm-hmm. I love this concept of rejecting average. Like, why would you want to be average? And this all kind of comes from the book, The Miracle Morning by Hal Elrod. And he says, this is the not so obvious secret guaranteed to transform your life before 8 a.m. It's a pretty bold statement. Yep. But what's interesting is there's a ton of people that follow this. He has a huge community. A ton of high performers follow The Miracle Morning, and they all have their own adaptation of that. And we've created our own personal adaptation of what our Miracle Morning looks like. But it's this idea of, what is everybody else doing? Well, a lot of people are sleeping until noon and, doing all kinds of things that really aren't productive.
Yeah, and in all fairness, I don't think a lot of people are sleeping until noon, but there's people that aren't winning their morning.
True.
And the concept that Hal talks about is like, whenever you wake up an hour earlier and be intentional with that. Mm-hmm. Journal, visualize. I take cold showers, so does Dan. Like, take cold showers, like do things to really set yourself up to win. And just that alone, what weeds out most of the people, because most people will sleep into the last minute and just get out of bed and do the very least that they can do in the morning to just get to where they need to go, and you've already lost.
Totally. And he talks about 6 concepts that really affect this, and they are the rearview mirror syndrome, which are kind of like limiting beliefs, and we'll break that down. A lack of purpose. We see and hear a lot about that. Lack of accountability. I can't wait to break these down. There's so many amazing things here. A mediocre circle of influence, a lack of personal development, and a lack of urgency. So starting back at the top, the rearview mirror syndrome and limiting beliefs, I talk a lot about this because so many people have limiting beliefs of like where they were before or what happened to them in the past dictates their future. And that's just so wrong. There's so many things that you can do. The possibilities are endless. And, reading Jim Quick's book right now, Limitless, he talks about we have the most powerful thing in the world between our ears here, the brain. Yeah. It's a supercomputer. And it goes back to Henry Ford. If you think you can, you're right. Or if you think you can or you think you can't, either way, you're right.
Correct. Yeah.
This idea of our future is limited by our past, I experienced that a lot too, of like, well, this is the way I was brought up, this is what I was taught. And all of a sudden, as I started learning more, as I started reading more books, I realized that really everything you want is possible, but you actually have to want it. And you have to, going back to what you're talking about, you have to visualize it, write it down, be grateful for what you do have, but don't be complacent with where you are. And, so many people are looking in that rearview mirror saying, putting up all these limiting beliefs of why things aren't possible instead of figuring out how can it be possible.
Or playing the victim card and saying, I can't do this because so-and-so, I can't do that. I mean, we could have a whole nother episode on some of the things that you've gone through, some of the things that I've gone through that we had to forgive, we had to move on, and we could easily use it as an excuse, but what's the point?
Totally.
And so, yeah, there's a lot of people that are living mediocre lives because they can't get past their past.
Yeah, I love this quote from Hal. He says, always remember that where you are is a result of who you were, but where you go depends entirely on who you choose to be from this moment on. That's really powerful. I mean, that alone is to take a moment. And again, in the morning, in the Miracle Morning, he talks about silence. Take a moment and actually think and reflect on what is it that you actually want.
Yeah.
I really love this idea of when we talk about health, wealth, love, and happiness. If you scored yourself from 1 to 10 on that, where would you land? And I don't think anybody would say they want a 2 on any of those areas. Like you would love to have a 10 in those. So what is it actually going to take to do that? And so there's a lot of things like limiting beliefs are really powerful and taking away those limiting beliefs is also very powerful. And so both of those things, like it's so powerful, and it's just take a moment and think about those things. The second one is lack of purpose. I mean, my goodness, this alone, again, could be another whole podcast episode, but the book you wrote, The End Asset, the first part of it is about your why. Which Simon Sinek says, start with why. Yeah. And how many people are walking around with a lack of purpose?
Yeah, I mean, even going back to his book, it's hard to get out of bed in the morning if there's not something that drives you. And I just, again, what would you do if money wasn't an issue? Because I've said this many times and I'm going to continue to say it. You're not wealthy if you're not living an intentional life. Really want that to sink in, because there's more to life than just money. And so really think about what that is, what that purpose is, and then reverse engineer your life, i.e. live your life in a way that lives that out.
Yeah, and you talk a lot about see and reach your highest potential. Like that's something that still hangs on your wall today, of like this purpose to help people see that, help them live an intentional life. I talk a lot about don't wait to start living. Yeah. There's so many things of like when you wake up in the morning, what is that purpose that's driving you? And that's what's so exciting about being here at BetterWealth is like we're on such a purposeful mission. There's never any question about that. And the people that are part of our team, the people that are part of our community, they know that. A lot of people buy into that mission of impacting 1 million people in the next 5 years. And that is a galvanizing purpose right there. The next one is lack of accountability.
Well, there you go.
And just from a financial perspective, I'm really big on this idea right now of a lot of people do what we do, but we do things differently around here. If you've listened to this at all, you know that we do things differently around here.
We're the only financial firm that talks about cold showers on their podcast.
But the biggest thing that we're building right now in the BetterWealth assessment and the BetterWealth model is accountability. And that's huge because it's so lacking in the financial space. A lot of people, they have a model and they'll say, well, here's your numbers. Go off on your merry way. We'll see you in a year. And who's holding that, the coach or the advisor accountable? Who's holding you accountable? And where's the accountability in between that? And that's the big piece of, if there's anything that we can do for you, it's provide that accountability to really actually help you live an intentional life. Like at the end of the day, it doesn't have to do with the money.
When we were launching BetterWealth Unlimited, it's our membership where we're helping people get their financial model. It's pretty much get their plan, their blueprint. But then one of the things that we're saying is, okay, what can we do that will be irresistible? And we're like, we need a long-term lifetime accountability. So lifetime coaching, that's a little bit intimidating. But we can't help you get results. I can't be fired up about what we're doing at BetterWealth if I'm not willing to stand by what we're doing for people, and I'm not willing to do something that's not going to be here for helping you the rest of your life. Because we find if we could do one thing, just be that person to help you stay accountable to what you said you are going to do or what you want to do, that alone can be a game changer. And most people won't get the kind of results that they want. Most people are stuck in their own ways because they don't have anyone that's willing to challenge them. They don't have anyone they're willing to be accountable to. Like, have you ever wanted to go to the gym consistently with no accountability partner? There's a couple people that can do that. Majority of people need some kind of external accountability, which is not bad if you know about it, to get the results. And so,
I'm so glad you said that, because Hal makes this reference of, what do you hate worse, going for a run or your current life situation?
Wow.
And we joke a lot about January 1st and the first 2 weeks of January, the gyms are full because people make their New Year's resolutions, and then the question mark is in February, where is everybody?
Yeah. It's a good business model for the gym.
Yeah. And so, fitness is one of those things that I think we all can relate to. Finance should be, but most people put their head in the sand when it comes to finances. But then the other piece that, I'm fallen victim to as well is reading books and not implementing what you read.
Yep.
That it's one thing to read the book, like commendable, but what are you doing to actually implement it?
Yep.
And that's, talk about accountability. And Hal so brilliantly says, when you read my book, one of the first things he says is get an accountability partner.
Yep.
And have somebody read it with you. The next one is your circle of influence. And I know you're passionate about this one too. Is you become the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with.
Do an audit of the people that are surrounding your life, and it's going to be really revealing. We've had to have some tough conversations with people just in our life and just say, listen, like not necessarily like cutting them out of our life. It's just saying, dude, you're getting these results. This is how you're feeling. Look at who you're spending time with. And in full transparency, as we're building BetterWealth, we made some moves, and we did that intentionally to say, listen, if we're going to think big, we need to be around people that think big. We need to position our life like that. And so if you're feeling stuck, if you're feeling like you're stuck in this mediocre life, or if you just want to like break through and get results, do an audit of the people that you're surrounding with and ask the question, would you trade places with any of these people? And if the answer is a heck no, take a step back and really figure out what you want to do with your life and how you want to be spending your time. We're not saying cut out people. We're just saying be careful how much time you're spending with certain people, and make sure that you spend time with people that energize you, fill you up, and challenge you, keep you accountable, and that are living purposeful life.
Yeah, and I think we, on our team here, we think about that a lot of, and you challenged me on this recently of like, who do you want to emulate? Who do you want to interact with? And this goes back to that sense of purpose and what do you really want? And whether you're 13 years old, whether you're 35 years old, 65 years old, like what do you want? Where do you want to go? Who do you want to be like? And then try and get in those rooms.
Yeah.
And, do you want to be a millionaire? A lot of people throw out that $1 million mark. Well, go start hanging out with millionaires. Do you want to be a social media influencer? Well, figure out a way to go hang out with social media influencers. Do you want to be the best marketer of all time? Well, go try and hang out with Russell Brunson. Yeah. I am like, I want to hang out with Jeff Bezos. So if you're listening, I'd love to meet you. And it goes back to like, that's the fastest way. That's how you learned, was to go find the people in the finance space that they had already written the books. They already had the experience. They already gone through that grind. And you took that leap instead of, you were still going to college, but you took that leap to then go and get your education from the people who already had that experience. So that would be the challenge, is go find those people and get into the circles that you want to be in. The next one is lack of personal development. And this too goes back to a lot of times I think in our current society is we go to college, we get a job, and then we shut our brains off.
Yep.
And we feel like because we went to college, which I would argue you didn't really learn much anyways, and then maybe you got trained at your first job, that then again, going back to this idea of technology is passing people by because they're not keeping up with it. And personal development, whether it's books, whether it's listening to a podcast like this, whether it's interacting with people, going to events, there's so many different ways to up-level your own personal development. And it's really important because time is moving faster than it ever has as far as like technology and the way things are changing. And if you, again, put your head in the sand, a lot of things are going to pass you by.
I say this a lot. You are your greatest asset. So the number one investment you can make is in yourself. And I'm baffled by the people that want the strategy, the tactic, and then you look at their life and you have to challenge them and say, man, like you're only living up to 30% of your income potential. That's just an example of like, okay, yeah, we could talk about the and asset strategy. We could talk about our financial model. We could talk about tax strategies, but what would it look like if you did a job change and doubled your income? And that's just an example of like, you want to continue investing in yourself, investing in your health, investing in other things that really make you perform and work at a high level.
Yeah, and that goes right into the last point of a lack of urgency.
Yeah, totally.
And you talk about this a lot. And I want to read this straight from Hal. He says, arguably the single most significant cause of mediocrity and unfulfilled potential, which prevents the majority of our society from creating and living the life they truly want, is that most people have no sense of urgency to improve themselves so they can improve their lives. Human nature is to live with a someday mindset
Yep.
and think life will work itself out. How's that working out for everybody? And this, we see it in so many different facets. Yep. And again, we see this in finance all the time. Of it's so much easier to just be like, oh, I'll figure it out someday in the future.
Yep.
And we're seeing more and more and more now, especially with what's going on, the uncertainty of the market. People 45, 55, 65 are all of a sudden waking up and saying, there is some urgency.
Yeah.
And how can I fix this? And it's like, when's the best time to plant a tree?
22 years ago.
Yeah. The next best time is today. Well, absolutely. We're still so happy that you're here, but it's so urgent that you understand this at a young age, or if you're a parent and you understand this now, to teach it to your kids or teach it to your community. There's so many different things, like, the urgency of figuring out this whole money thing is really, really important.
Yeah. One of the things that, as we're just going through this is obviously a episode that we care a lot about, because we're trying to live out these six elements, and not trying to be for those things to not be the reason why we're being mediocre. So if you're someone that's like, man, I want to do something about my money, I want to make sure that I'm not being mediocre as it relates to the way that I think about my life and about my wealth, go to betterwealth.com. That's betterwealth.com. We have a ton of education that we're pumping out, but we have a financial assessment that can show you on a 2-line graph what you're doing, like what it's going to look like now and in the future. And I think for many people that go there, it's a wake-up call. Yeah. Talk about urgency. It gets you to start thinking about what you've been taught about money and what you're currently doing. And the reason we do that, and by the way, like, we do that so that you can do it yourself. And we've just seen so many people go, oh my goodness, like, I need to do something different. And we want to be the company that is there to help you navigate these uncharted waters, quite frankly, but also help you start taking back control of your life. And in a way, Dan, it has nothing to do with your money. Mm-hmm. It has everything to do with how you live your life.
Yeah, and it's funny you say that, because I was just thinking that there's so many. I mean, we talk about money a lot, obviously, but it's always going back to health, wealth, love, happiness, and it all goes back to that idea of, like, do you want to be mediocre in those things? And knowing that the financial part is realistically the easiest one.
Yeah, it really is.
It's jarring to me when I look at some of these calculators, and how we keep talking about compound interest is so simple. It's volume of money, interest rate, and time. And if you understand those three things and you take care of that, then you can work on having more happiness, having better health, having better relationships, and going from wherever you are on that spectrum of, let's just say, from 1 to 10, you have that opportunity to raise the bar. Yeah. Just the fact that you're listening to this podcast means that you want more. And that's what I'm so excited that you're listening. I'm excited to be here and share this and know that this isn't fake. Like, this is what we do every single day. Correct. This is what is going through our minds every single day. This is what we're talking to our team about. And hopefully soon we'll be talking to our whole community in person at some point when this thing ends.
Yeah, I would love that. Email us. Dan doesn't get any emails from the fans, so Dan@betterwealth.com. You can also email me at Caleb@betterwealth.com. And live intentional, and go out and crush the day. And thank you so much for listening and watching. Thank you so much for listening to the BetterWealth podcast. It would mean the world to me if you could hit subscribe, leave a review, and share this with the people that you know and love.